We're actually going to talk a little bit today about radio and podcasting. I think we've all probably, and I don't know, unfortunately, you guys at all, but we're going to learn a little bit about each other. I'll let you know a little bit about who I am. My name's Bethany Halley, although I write as Cassandra Dane. I actually write erotic, but I also host 2 radio shows on Blog Talk Radio that highlight different writers. One is for the fantasy, science fiction, and murder mystery writer, and the other is for the sensuous or passionate writer. So I've been doing that with the radio about a little over a year now. In writing, I've got about 7 out and 25 under contract. So, what about you guys? Say hello.
Well, I'm Sherry Wright, and I'm the host of From the Inkwell. It's a 1-hour literary show, and I interview writers, publishers, bookstore owners, educators, anybody that has anything to do with the literary world or with the written word, whether they're performance or academic or writing on paper napkins. I don't care, as long as you're writing, and I'm there to help promote other writers.
My name is Mrs. Dixon, and I did a podcast for 2.5 years called Mrs. Urban Home. And I wanted to do a podcast on whatever I felt was interesting. I did lots of authors, I did lots of paranormal, and I also did urban homesteading as well, and how that relates to a more modern society, actually before the crash. So I was kind of ahead of the game there. And mine is on Blog Talk Radio as well.
My name is John Clement, and the show that I host is Dragon Talk Radio, your convention connection. And basically the idea is to vicariously capture the convention world and bring it to you through the podcast. So we kind of work against that feeling on Sunday when the big displays are tearing down and the big guests have to leave early to fly off for other cities, and all you have to look forward to Monday is your mundane job or school or whatever it is you have going on, and there's just kind of that letdown. A lot of people at the conventions, you know, they'll tell you that the costume that you see at a convention is the real them, and the costume they wear is in the rest of the world. You know, they only feel normal at a convention. So our slogan for the show is the convention doesn't have to be over on Sunday because we're just a click away.
I'm Sam Neese, and I'm here with my first novel, Sugar Land Melting. It's a science fiction thriller, and I've worked for the past 10 years for WKCB Radio. It's an FM station in Knott County, and I host a Saturday evening show called Killer Radio. We do interviews, sketch comedy, and we rock. We play a little rock music too, so a variety of things going on.
That's great. What about you guys? Do you have any experience in radio, or just like the concept of podcasts and all of that?
Been on his show.
Ah,
You've been on mine too,
Yes, I have.
that's great. Podcasting is I think, a very interesting thing. It kind of enables, whether you're interested in books or music or anything else, just kind of spoken language, to have an opportunity to enter into something that maybe you don't have time for on a normal occasion. You can download it, buy it, not buy it, whatever. I think it's a great thing.
I told people for years when I first started it, 2007, I think, as I told people, it was like the old FM radio. It was sort of the modern version of FM, and it was even more because anybody could download it to your smartphone or whatever and be your own personal thing. And also, it was very freeing. I'm a school teacher, and I had a podcast with 20,000 listeners, and it allowed me to have that kind of access to the world and my opinions and the people I interviewed. It allowed that to happen, and it was happening right there in my dining room, which I turned into an office and a studio, which was for me one of the most freeing things. This FM, I don't know if anybody remembers FM from the 70s, where it took all this stuff. I mean, I was young, but I'm a physics person, so we'd build our own radio. So I took all this equipment and all this stuff, even if we were doing it in the back of a van. And now all I need is my laptop and a phone.
And your switchboard is in your browser.
And your switchboard is in your browser, and that's it. And you're ready to go.
Yeah, I think the advancement of our technology has enabled us to do so many things that we could only dream about, or at least think that we would never have access to. And it's a great way to connect people who would not have had that opportunity otherwise. I'm doing the same thing that you do. It's right on the kitchen counter there, and the cat helps, and
I've got dogs barking in mine, you know.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's a Sunday, you know. I know that doesn't happen in regular radio, but
Sometimes for me it does, but no, regularly, no, it doesn't. A lot of times, it's easier to promote the things too. Like just if you have a podcast, I think anybody would be surprised at how successful it could become. Because just like you all mentioned, with the technology that we have today, promoting it and getting it out there is a lot easier to do. And then word of mouth, you have a few thousand listeners, it'll quickly multiply.
Our station started up, Crescent Hill Radio here in Louisville, started up a year and a half, 2 years ago, and we have listeners all over the world, Ukraine, South America, England, and I don't know exactly how many listen to my show, and I'm kind of scared to find out on one hand, but it is. It's like, do I really want to know? But the idea is that you just have fun with it, and you connect with people, and it's just it's a wonderful tool. And yes, marketing, we have such an advantage now because we have all these social networking sites. We have ways of promoting that we never had access to before. You can go down the Kinko's, or you have Vistaprint. Word of mouth really does help. I mean, the days of putting up flyers all over town, all over telephone poles, that's gone. Nobody looks at flyers anymore. They look at the internet. And if you focus on the internet, that's where your audience, that's where you're going to find your audience.
yeah, I mean, it's basically the cost of a web page, which is nominal. And Blog Talk, which is $35 a month or something like that right now. I mean, and that's nominal. And you too can be world famous. I mean, in a heartbeat.
And even the terrestrial stations, like the FM stations, they want to stream online. So they're understanding the broader scope of having it on the internet where anybody can listen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the FM stations are trying to do the exact same thing that you all do.
My concern is, I do have a concern though, going forward, is that it will become just like FM radio, where originally it was just a few people doing it, and now my concern is that it will become so difficult or expensive to be able to do this, because Blog Talk used to be free. And most people, I don't know if most people knew that, but Blog Talk was free.
They still have a free tier of service that will take you quite a ways.
It will take you quite a ways, absolutely. I think it's a half an hour a day or something.
Yeah.
Well, and you can't use the primetime slots.
Right,
it has to be
right.
before 6 or after 9.
Right. But nonetheless, it will still get you everywhere. So that's basically the price of a website at that point. And you're on your way. But I don't want it to be because it used to be free for everything. So, and I'm a little concerned that it might be blocking out for people, and that's far in the future, nonetheless. Where's the next place for people around their kitchen tables like us going, hey, wait a minute, I got something to say.
Well, I think, though, that it lends itself to, it's kind of sad, about radio in general. I'm dating myself, too, but, I grew up with radio, and radio was fun. Radio was a place where you could have your favorite DJ, and you loved him or her, and you loved those contests, and now you don't have as much. We all listen to satellite radio, and we listen to podcasts, and we listen to audiobooks in the car. So came up from Richmond, Virginia, and it's enough of a drive to get here, and said, we're going to listen to radio. Real live radio. And it was interesting having to flip back and forth and hearing it for the first time, I swear to God, in 3 years. And I thought to myself, isn't that a sad state that you've got a lot of talent out there doing this still, and there's wonderful, wonderful talented people, and we're stuck on listening to some of these things. It is changing in the marketplace, and it's what we're going to do with it and how creative we're going to make it. I think it's fascinating and I love it, but I'm like you, I worry a little bit. What are we going to do? Where's it going to be in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? It's moving so fast.
It is moving so fast, but my concern is where's the openness, that whole the free society kind of thing, and all the censorship and that kind of stuff. That concerns me going forward. I don't believe in having all kinds of horrible stuff out there, but I also don't want to be censored, especially with some of the paranormal or erotica.
Yeah.
Because I write erotica as well, and I'm like going, because you turn that manuscript in, and you always go, is it too much? You know, and I don't really want that in radio, because on radio we can't say certain things.
Oh, and that's true. Censorship hurts what I do, like with the FM, and it being commercial radio too. Censorship hurts it, and whereas computers have helped you all, computers have made radio stale as far as terrestrial radio, because you have the digital jukebox, you have the automation system. You don't really need a person. You come in there, you can record a 30-second weather forecast, and it's automatically programmed in to play every 3 or 4 songs. It takes the liveliness out of it, and that's why I think you all will take over. Eventually, people will be turning to you because they're listening to a person talking with people about things. You know, they already know the weather forecast by now. They don't need it anymore.
And it's very much that whole real life, that new TV, the stuff that's on TV now.
Oh, the reality shows.
Yes. It's reality. I mean, people, when I was doing it, people would be in my chat room going, is that Sigmund barking? You know, they knew my dog's bark, which freaked me out the first time. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe they actually know the difference between my kids. But seriously, they would know about that stuff. They would and that. But I think it's that reality show kind of thing that gets at the edge, that they feel the everyman kind of thing.
As impersonal as almost everything seems to be going, I think we crave that. We crave that one-on-one and talking with people. Everybody wants to text and send an email. Nobody really wants to talk to anybody, it seems. But because of what we do, we feel as if we are. We get to know somebody, and we're not listening to a canned recording that's going on all over the country and doesn't really have anything to do with us.
And as an audience member, you can interact as much or as little as you are comfortable with. If you're comfortable just listening and never interacting at all, fine. If you're comfortable in the chat room, fine. Or if you do a call-in show, if you're comfortable calling in and sounding off, fine. You know, as much or as little as you feel comfortable. Or even if it's not a live show, you can still email into the show and blast an opinion if you have a really strong opinion that you really loved something or you were really offended by something.
What I think is the neatest part for me, and I was asked to do it, and I thought, yeah, it's neat, it's great, and I loved it as soon as I did it. My favorite part about it is interviewing the different authors and giving them a voice. But I never knew that. I really thought it would be like, come on, just talk with me, we'll chat, we'll have a great time. And I found immediately everybody went, it's radio. God, I can't. Don't worry, I really won't torture you. This is, about trying to drag you through the mud on anything. And once they get on, they realize it's really a fun thing for them to do, and they can be them, and they can talk about what they want to talk about. So I really love that.
One of the things that I understood early on was it was an epiphany, though. I mean, I discovered it sort of, that there's at least 2 different kinds of journalism. There's a lady downstairs who runs Literary Underground. Her name's Elizabeth Donald, fantastic author. You should read her books. And but in her day job, she's a newspaper reporter, and so she calls me a few days before the first time she's on my show, and she says, "Okay, John, I'm supposed to be on your show in a few days. How does this work?" And I'm like, oh gosh, Elizabeth, I've had the week from hell. I'm so sorry. I meant to send your guest packet out. I need to write up the questions and send you the questions for your approval and a conversation guide, and I just haven't done that. I'll get to it. And then suddenly the light bulb went on. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're a newspaper reporter for your day job. You interview people for a living. Why are you asking me about how to interview people? And she says, well, yes, John, I interview people for a living, but I don't give them the questions ahead of time. And I said, well, that's because I'm not trying to investigate you. We're not trying to bust anyone on Dragon Talk Radio. We're trying to make you shine. And she says, well, I could get used to that. So I don't know if these are the real terms that they use in the real industry or not, but I sort of realized that there's investigative journalism, and then there's what I think of myself as an entertainment journalist. When you're on my show, as an author, or I've interviewed stuntmen and playwrights and movie creators and actors and comic book artists, and it's like whatever you're on the reason, like if David Blaylock is on my show to talk about his next book, I'm not there to make him look like an idiot. I'm there to make him look like David Blaylock the Magnificent, you know.
Give me some love on that.
You know. You know, but so it's not, in a sense, it's not investigative journalism. I think of it as entertainment journalism.
I have to agree with you. When I did my podcast, I did the same thing. You were there to be awesome, and we were there to have a wonderful hour on a Sunday morning. That's what we were there to do.
Right.
And I was there to make you look good, because if you looked good, I looked good, and the family was fabulous. You know, and we had a great rapport, and things just, the water rose for everybody.
Right, but it's a different kind of journalism than
Right.
the newspaper reporter
Right.
who's trying to get the scoop on something.
Yeah, I'm not trying to light you under fire and roast you slowly.
Right.
I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want it to happen to you. But I also like doing the research. I don't know how much research.
But there's a place
Oh,
in the world for
absolutely.
both. We
Yeah,
have
oh,
to
yeah.
have investigative journalism, and we have to have entertainment journalism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to keep asking the same questions over and over with each guest. You have to tailor it specifically to that person, and they'll know it, you know, and your audience will know it if you don't do that. You know,
Yeah,
you want to make it more conversational.
Yeah, I had some generalized questions that I asked pretty much everybody, and everybody expected those. They were like, okay, these following questions, but it was obvious. I wanted to make it obvious. I read their stuff, and what my opinion about their stuff was. In fact, I had a guest, and I read their stuff, and I'm like going, you know, I love this person, but I just don't know how to make that look good. but I mean, that was only once or twice, but most of the time it was like, whoa, you have got to go read this. And I wanted to make sure they knew that. I knew the characters, I knew if they weren't just writers or whatever they were doing. I had gardeners on because people love gardening. And it was just right before the crash where we had all this you know, stuff, and people, I mean, Steve, I get emails right now still. I got 2 emails this week about planting potatoes.
People believe in what some of what they hear. I mean, it's like you want that leader syndrome, and they love listening to somebody on the radio, somebody on television, and they want to believe in it. And I think you want to give an air of knowing and caring about the person that you're interviewing, or you come across as instead of the person, you know.
I think radio interviews are the best interviews because, first of all, with the guests I've had, after about 5 minutes, they sort of lose thought that they're on the radio, and it's just like us talking right here. And plus, which that can get some people in trouble too when they forget, oh yeah, I'm on the radio.
Was the mic on?
Yeah.
Well, the FCC isn't going to like that.
But they have there's more time too, because when they come on my show, they sit for the whole 4 hours if they want with me, and so you can get into their work, and then you can talk about some of the stuff in their life, their family, or whatever. You know, you get the chance to really get to know them.
Well, it helps the guests to relax. You know, when we're doing this thing. Hey, can I get you a cup of tea? You know, let's just sit down and just talk for a little bit and relax, chill out. You know, are you hungry? Oh, that's the cat. Yes, you can pick her up. And check out the garden. You know, just yeah, you just talk and you make them feel like a guest because they are a guest. Doing you a service by coming and being on your show. So. Be a good host.
Well, and one thing I learned from some professional agents was that I'd start doing very early on is when I mentioned a guest packet is you send them the questions ahead of time. And there's several reasons to do this. One reason to do it is to make sure that that you're not going to inadvertently, innocently ask about something that they would rather not talk about.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then there's the other point of view. They might have a new book or some new project they're working on that you haven't heard about yet that they really need to promote, and you don't even know to ask about it. So you kind of get a chance to hash out the conversation ahead of time that way with stuff that you might have innocently missed or stuff that you might have innocently asked that maybe you shouldn't have. And also the thing is, it makes them feel safe, especially the bigger celebrities you get onto your show. The world is looking to take advantage of them. The world is looking to take advantage of a celebrity and try to trap them on the air into some shock value type moment that they can milk. Oh, I got so and so trapped to say such and such on my show, and so they basically a celebrity lives in a sort of a paranoia that the world is going to go National Enquirer on their butt. And the thing is, it's like when you establish that your show and this is the way the agents, 2 different agents explained it to me in 2 different conversations. If you can establish your show as a safe zone, then the thing is, celebrities have other friends who are celebrities, and they have other friends who are celebrities, and if you can establish that your show is a safe zone and that you're there to take care of them and not try to go National Enquirer on them, then that will get around. And you will get, it's like any other thing you do in life, any other kind of business or anything else, your reputation will precede you. And and if you develop a reputation in the celebrity community as a safe zone, then not only will they come back, but then they'll tell their friends that you're a safe zone too.
Yeah, I never had problems filling my slots. I had 52 shows a year, well, give or take. But, and I had no problems filling mine.
And once your reputation is ruined, then that's it. I mean, and you're going to make mistakes, though. You're going to flub over words. You're going to...
Right, those are honest mistakes. We're talking, there's a difference between that and taking advantage of people.
Oh, absolutely. But so, just be prepared. Be prepared to screw up somewhere along the way. But as long as you maintain your integrity, then that's more key than worrying about some little...
Because you will get much further along developing good, solid relationships with people for the long term than you will out of any sort of shock jock thing some stunt that you might want to pull on someone.
Absolutely, and I think too that they want to know that you're human. I mean, the one nice thing about some of the live blog talks is it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have a thunderstorm that takes you out, or you're going to have a phone line that gets dropped, or whatever. It's human. And if you are professional and you just treat people as you want to be treated, that's going to go a long way, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I had Khalila Smith from New Orleans Haunted Tours on for Valentine's Day, talking about love spells and that kind of stuff. And she couldn't, whatever reason, it wouldn't connect at all. It had to cancel the entire show. But we rescheduled it for several weeks later and it was ready to go. But, and I had to do that a couple of times just because the servers are down at Blog Talk,
It happens.
It happens, that's a reality.
Where your guest is an idiot.
Yeah, well, I love you.
That's my fault.
Yeah, it's like my fault.
I've ruined that poster.
That's all right, but it happens, And I had kidney stones one time, and I was very fortunate that a friend of mine, I had everything prepped. I emailed it to her, collapsed on the couch, and she called my guest and went, "Hi, I'm going to be interviewing you today."
But you said you're a teacher, so you're prepared. You have a sub-lesson prepared for the substituency, so you already have that.
You're already up on the website because all the questions are already up on my website.
It's just like calling in. I need a substitute today. Telling them pull lesson 2 out of my folder, Mr. Principal, and give it to the sub.
Absolutely, yeah, and I did, because I'd never had kidney stones before, but I was passed out, and I just emailed it to her, and emailed my guest, and went, "I can't come in today, but this person is going to interview you," and they managed to make it, so.
That's real life, then.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys get into doing some of this? Was it something you wanted to do, or somebody asked you to do it, or you just...
Well, a friend of mine started a radio station, and she was looking for ideas. And I said, "Well, what about a literary radio show here in Louisville? There isn't one." And she said, "Oh, that's great. Who's going to do it?" And I said, "Well, how hard could it be?" And then I found out. And I'd had a little experience, and I'd taken some classes in voiceover, and so I got my feet a little bit wet, and so I really didn't know what I was doing at all, and I just went and did it and learned. It was all trial by fire, and I've really enjoyed it. I just felt very strongly that this whole region really has so much talent, and there needs to be a spotlight on it, and I thought, well, I can do something here to help, and anyone can do this anywhere for,
a phone and a computer, that's it.
That's it.
Internet connection.
Internet connection, yeah.
Hopefully a reliable one.
A stable one. Yeah, because I've done live shows when I'm walking around a con, set up the thing in my headphone, or my phone, and I love that.
Yeah, I did that at Mysticon. That's one of the reasons I'm here. And it's funny. I don't know if you guys have tried to hook up the internet here.
I haven't been able to find that yet. How was your training? What was your secret in this stuff?
You don't really want to talk about that because
Okay,
I just
sorry.
gave up on it after a while. But it's the same kind of thing. You're at a convention and you're given a program, and it's like, okay, it's coming back. In and out. But it was one of my favorite shows because it was live guests that were coming in to talk, and I had a blast, and it was just a lot of fun. But you don't know what you're going to expect. I mean,
My dad has done that. When I was a little boy, I mean, he's worked in radio, still does work in radio in Jackson. So I would stack the tape decks together and the little microphones, and try to be like him. So that's what got me into doing radio, and it's really all I've ever done. I started on the campus station when I went to college, and that's been 16 years ago, man. But I've done it ever since then. It gets in your blood. It does. My show will air tomorrow night, and I'll be here, so it'll be a rerun, and then I feel cheap. It's like, oh, they're gonna know it's a rerun. Oh God, but you miss it. Once you get in it, it does get its claws into you.
I started out in 2007. A friend of mine, Carlite Publishing, we were all sitting around, we were refurbing a house. We have a lot of weird stuff we do. We were refurbing a house, we were all sitting around going, well, what can we do, what can we do, what can we do? And I was like, has anybody heard of podcasting? And I know this is but this is 2007. I mean, nobody really, knew much about it. And I said, well, and Alan goes, well, supposedly you can do it on free for Blog Talk. Who's going to volunteer? And I'm like, I will. So I went, and literally I had a show that was January. That was in the second week of January. By Super Bowl. My first show was Super Bowl 2007, and the system crashed because it was Super Bowl with every idiot on the planet and had their Super Bowl show going, and I was like,
Well, they had it fixed because my first show was Super Bowl 2010.
really? Oh yeah, but oh really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So 3 years later, it was.
Well, it was. And I had shows every Super Bowl Sunday because mine was Sunday. But yeah, that first 2007 crashed the system. It was turned up its toenails. I had my first guest. I managed to get through the whole show, but the system went down. Lost my show. Came back. It was great. I loved it. But it was so thing. But for 2.5 years, every week, every Sunday, I was on the show. I was on the show. Awesome. So.
Well, I was sort of dragged into it as the cautious skeptic. Not exactly dragged into it kicking and screaming, that would be too much of an exaggeration, but I was kind of dragged into it as the cautious skeptic. A friend of mine who kind of functions as my literary agent is a paid consultant to consult companies about their use of social media and how to use it better and stuff and more to their advantage. And so he's telling me, hey John, you gotta get a podcast, And I'm like, no, I don't. Because see, as a computer geek, as soon as podcasting became the rage, I went to panels just like this one, and I sat in one of those chairs, and as a computer geek, it was the latest thing. I want to know about it, and after I learned about it, and I had friends on the panels, and so I trusted them and believed them, and they were very experienced and had podcasts that had been going for years, so I thought, I know all about it now, and I think unless I'm good. Well, no. Unless, and my conclusion was, unless I'm going to do audiobooks with my books, I don't really need one. I mean, they're cool, they're neat, but I didn't see myself needing one or doing one. So I said, Larry, I do not need a podcast. And see, Larry he's very mundane. He has a passing pop culture knowledge of Star Trek, but who doesn't? And so I'm sort of teaching him about the geek world. He teaches me about the broadcasting world. And I said, Larry, if you Google or Yahoo sci-fi or fantasy podcast, you're going to find a cagillion hits. There's going to be the movie reviews, there's going to be the book reviews, there's going to be the game reviews, and then there's going to be like the Knights at the Dinner Table, spoofy, ha-ha, funny comedy things. And I said, there's a billion of them. I said, why do I want to be a drop of water in the ocean? I need to stand out. I need to be different. And Larry's like, no, John, I got a niche for you. You've been telling me about these conventions you go to as an author and all these signings that you do. You're going to be the convention connection. I'm like, So I went to Google and Yahoo.
Did you have one of these?
And I searched.
Years up until
No. And I searched, and I found a few since then, but at the time I couldn't find any. So I thought, okay, maybe you did find a niche. We'll see. So I asked him some more questions. So how would this work? What do you have in mind? He says, well, John, you've been telling me for 2 years about these conventions you go to and sign books and stuff. He says, how many of these people that you tell me about, the the fellow authors and the comic book artists and the independent movie creators and all that, how many of those people are personal friends of yours and would be on your show just as a favor to you, even if it was just a hobby, even if it wasn't a business model, even if we weren't trying to make money at it? How many people would be on the show just as a favor to John? I thought, well, probably about 20. He says, John, that's 20 weeks of programming. And by the time you burn through those 20 weeks, you're going to have expanded, and you'll meet more people and more people and more people and more people before that 20 weeks is up. Because all of a sudden, instead of, because now he's talking, because my original question was, how am I supposed to stand out? I don't want to blend in. I need to be different. So he says, instead of being like the other authors, nothing against anybody, I love y'all, love you, David. But it's like an author comes to the table, and it's like, buy my book. Me, you gotta buy my book. Isn't my book cool? Haven't you heard of me? Don't you want to read my book? Doesn't have a nice cover. But the thing is, it's like, instead of just being another author in the sea of authors, all of a sudden it's like, with Dragon Talk Radio, it's about you. Instead of telling David how great my book is, I want him to tell me how great his book is. Because there's all kinds of success gurus, and I think Zig Ziglar is like one of the most famous ones that talks about how you can get what you want in life after you help enough other people get what they want. And after you help lift enough other people up, then they'll turn around and help lift you up. So it's
After
the water rises in the harbor.
Right. So the thing is, it's like, instead of going to, it was a whole new dynamic. And my 5th year I went to the convention circuit for 4 years just as an author, and then the 5th year I went to the convention circuit with Dragon Talk Radio. I met like 20 times more people as the Dragon Talk Radio guy than I ever met as an author. And it was just really cool, fun relationships and friendships, because it wasn't me, gee, am I selling enough books? Do I suck? Do they really like my books? Do I, and all these self-doubt things that authors have, all of a sudden I'm helping other people, and that was really how so I was sort of dragged into it as the cautious skeptic, but I warmed up to it.
Well, for me, other than I was a guest on one of the shows, and for some reason I also do audiobooks, and I think they knew that and kind of liked my voice a little bit and asked me to do the fantasy, which is great, and I love that, and it's a genre I also write in. I'm just not published yet. And then the owner of the radio show actually knew that I read erotica. For any of you that don't know or don't read or have some misconception about erotica, I get it all the time. I do a lot of blogs. I write a lot of articles for a lot of different magazines. Everybody thinks it's porn. And so I have that argument all the time. And when the owner and I were talking about another radio show, she said, we have to bring it out to the forefront that sensuous romance / erotica is not porn. And you're the kind of person that you're writing it. Can you try to do that without creating those problems that can be in the marketplace? No. Do they read their erotica on the radio? No. Do I have a reading this weekend and it terrifies me? Yes. So no, it's not something that we do. But what we're telling you is a story about how they got into it, the difference, what the fabulousness of the genres are. Same thing. It has nothing to do with me. You don't hear anything about what I'm doing. You hear everything about what everybody else is doing, because that's what's important. And in any market, as any artist, there's room for everyone. I don't care what you're doing, what you're writing, how fabulous you are. You're going to succeed if the whole genre succeeds. You're going to succeed if the market succeeds. I mean, for God's sake, Borders is going under. We've got ebooks and all of this scenario. And if you work together as a team and you kind of play well in the sandbox, that's kind of my philosophy, that I think that everybody's going to succeed. So that's the way we've been playing it along. And it's actually my most successful radio show.
Well, Larry Lewis, the guy that came up with Dragon Talk Radio, around Christmas, he started using a new verb. He started using the verb curate and using the noun curation, which is like a museum curator. And so he's like, John, we are the curators of the geek world. Because a curator in a museum takes care of those exhibits and makes sure that they're presented in the best possible light, and make sure that they're taken care of so that they withstand the ravages of time, make sure that they're presented in a way that they're protected from little kids' sticky fingers that might come to the museum. Basically, you want to present and showcase to the maximum exposure of the culture of each piece of the exhibit, whether my exhibit is David Blaylock or whoever, anybody who's on my show, so we're like, so it's really kind of audacious vision, I think, to say, to be the curators of the geek world. As if this was an episode of Doctor Who, and I could walk through this museum with all this weird geeky stuff, and check it out. This is Stephen Zimmer's Exodus series, and this is and it's like walking through all these different worlds, and I take care of and focus on each one of them.
And I think of it much more from an educator point of view, because I love education. I teach 12th graders, all year long, and they go out into the world, and I teach urban teenagers, and they know very little about anything. That was so cool. Urban teenagers, but my urban teenagers don't know much about anything in that kind of that this is out there. Once a year after exams are done and everything else, and I'm the seniors I have a lot of kids who are exempt, so I show them pictures of like Dragon Con, and when I go to sci-fi conventions, I'm like, look, people in stormtrooper outfits. Oh look, this is and they're like, wow, that's so cool. But I want to be one of those people who educates people about all of the cool stuff, the cool little stuff out there, like steampunk. They didn't know steampunk, they didn't know Jules Verne type stuff was even, they read Jules Verne like a half a story sometime because one of the teachers made them. But they had no idea, really, it's a whole big world out there. Or urban fantasy. I'm like, Twilight, there's a name for that. It's called urban fantasy. Don't ever read that because it's bad. But, and you can't read my stuff because you're not old enough yet. But we're 18. Every girl turns 18, they come to me going, read your stuff. No. But I feel like a school teacher now. I feel like I'm educating them about the authors, about TV, about radio, about all kinds of stuff, where I'm not sure I could have done that with regular radio.
No, yeah.
I don't think that vehicle is out there for that. But I feel like an educator of people through all ages, because even older people can get involved in new stuff.
One thing that I love is that it seems like a lot of older people are really getting into some of the podcasts and the audiobooks and things like that, where they might not. I understand Kindle, and you can make it larger for reading, but I really have an audience that enjoys listening that's older. And I've never really thought about it, but they're a lot of times the ones that'll ask me questions more than some of the younger crowd. They're just really getting into it, and I think that, in a sense, as an educator, if you want to call it, is kind of fascinating for me.
Yeah, I guess because I am an educator, I think of everything as education. I think of this kind of thing as education.
Oh, absolutely.
Going around a convention is education. But also older people, how many people work 50, 60 hours a week? I work 50 hours a week during the school year. That's my day job. Then I come home and write for 4 hours. But they can put that CD in on the drive time. Yeah. Or they put it in on their phones, and they can listen to the audiobook on their drive time. So it's not wasted space for them. Yeah. And wasted time. I know plenty of people who downloaded my podcast. Monday and Tuesday mornings were my biggest time for podcasts. People were at work, and they knew there was no cursing in my stuff. There was no anything else, and they knew they could download it at work and listen to it at work without any problems. So
that's very nice. Where do you see regular radio, do you think, going in the future?
Well, certainly it's going to go digital. It's already starting to go digital. I don't really know. In some ways, there's an advantage of things being localized. A lot of people who listen to our station, they want to hear the local news, what's going on or whatever. But I definitely see it going more along the lines of what you all are doing. There's just there's too much of an opportunity for success there. To gain more and more listeners. There's only so much you can do within the realm of 20,000 watts or whatever it is you have. With you all, there's no limit.
Well, the first time that a listener, you're in St. Louis, Missouri, and the first time that a listener in the audience Skypes in from Australia with a comment.
Yeah.
And so that Aussie accent is from Aussie. For traveling around the planet by Skype, and on my switchboard, Skype shows up as 111 on caller ID, so that's how I know that it's Skype, And if I was in Australia, I'd Skype in too.
Yeah, the first time you get a call from England, and I actually interviewed an author in England, and the first time you get one from England, you're like, I was like, whoa, hi, where are you from? What is it?
Berkshire.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I forget where they were from, but yeah, I was like,
Whoa.
That's impressive. I am
It
talking
is.
to somebody
It is.
all the way around the world.
It's hard for me to say like what I think radio is going to do, because when I look at it, it seems to me like it hasn't changed much over a long period of time. It's certainly changed since it began, but and I'm talking about what I do with the the FM radio, the commercial radio. It seems like it hit a point and it's stayed there for a long while. I think you will start to hear more talk. I think a lot of more people want to hear talk radio. With the music, there's only so many times you can hear an AC/DC song before it starts to lose its zing with you.
You know something weird that I noticed though, and it was, and I know it has nothing to do with Lexington or being here or whatever, but I noticed the news, it was very reality based. It was so pointed out. It wasn't the car crash at the end of it was, she did this and she was this mother of this child and blah blah blah, and then she had a crash, and I was going, that's an interesting. I haven't heard radio in so long to hear it pointed out like that in 5 paragraphs. Have you guys? I mean, do you listen to regular radio? Is this something?
No. Most of the
Very
stations in this area are canned. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some that are not, but I've noticed that on television, and I think it's a way of grabbing the listener or the viewer. It's more engaging. We're becoming more geared toward. Well, it's partly, I think, due to these reality shows that we have. We need to feel like we want to hear a story. We don't want just the facts. We want to feel like it's not just interactive, like with calling in, but also we want to feel like we have some connection to the story that we're hearing. We have to humanize it.
It could be our 15 minutes of fame.
Well, that too, yeah.
That's what I've told people, and that's what I explain to people is this kind of stuff. The reality show is somebody's 15 minutes of fame, and it could be your 15 minutes of fame. Or I mean, the things. They have crab fishing. Crab fishing is like the hottest thing ever. I mean, I didn't know there was crab fishing. I guess I had to know there was crab fishing, but I didn't know there was crab fishing.
And that it's a hit.
It's a hit.
It's gone on for what, 2, 3, 4 years now?
Oh no, I think it's on like 8 or something like that. Yeah.
I know, and it's the same thing over and over. They go out, somebody almost dies, they bring back
They
loads
curse a
of
lot.
crabs.
They
and-
smoke a lot, and they bring back crabs.
Well, anytime anything becomes commercial, it hurts it, and that's one thing that would hurt you all is if somebody someday says, we can make a lot of money off this, and there goes the downfall, because you start having people like you all do it, and I do it because I love it, and that's what fuels you doing it. Well, when people figure out they can make money off of it, you have a lot of people who they don't love doing it. They love making money, and so therefore they do all the wrong things. They start thinking, well, it's going to cost us money here and there, and that's one thing I worry about with the internet stuff is I hope they don't ever find a way to where they can put those restraints on it and
Blog Talk
make
already,
money.
yeah. Blog Talk, I mean, I believe the restraints aren't bad, but I can see a point where it gets worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it becomes financially profitable. And those of us, who have day jobs, I'm sure would like to have the ability to do whatever we want. And I mean, I'd love to sit and talk to people every day for an hour about whatever topics that interest me.
Sure.
And that's what my podcast was all about. So, trying to make money from that, I can definitely.
It's inevitable. It's going to happen. I think you're going to see. What's sad to me about regular radio is that I liked that interpersonal kind of feeling. He's the guy down the street that lives in my community that's in back of me, and he's the radio DJ. And I've listened to him for 5 years. That's what I miss. But I'm here listening to satellite radio. So, we've all fallen to that. The same thing with Blog Talk. I mean, it's going to get to a point where people need to make money. And you either can not make money and work a day job and try to squeeze that in, or you can eventually say, somebody's going to either offer you or you're going to come up with a way to do it. And that's unfortunately reality.
But what makes me feel good is it always finds a way. The self-expression always finds a way.
Yes.
And those of us who, I mean, I would love to make money at it. I'm sure everybody here would like to make money at it. But for those people who may never do that, there is always, they gave me such a feeling of there's always going to be a way for just plain Jane, somebody like me, to sit in our living room and do something monstrous. And And that Blog Talk really proved that to me, and that possibility is going to still be there. And I'm always afraid of censorship. I have seen that, being a school teacher, I see that devastation of censorship throughout the ages. And that always, FM was, when I think back to FM, it was FM. It was, first it was AM, then it was FM. Then it was ham radio for a very long time. But, what happened in that interlude? Ham radio and UFA and cable TV. Although it was a little more thing. And then some of the internet with that kind of stuff. And it kind of exploded again, and they were always blown away.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely, for self-expression and for everything else.
Great. Anybody have any questions? Everybody's quiet.
I will say I can tell that all of you all do a great job. It's great listening to you sit and talk here. So
I think it's a wonderful expression. I mean, what it has allowed me more than anything is to meet some of the greatest people that I can consider, so many of them my actual really, really good friends, and I've never met some of them. Greatest joy is one of my guests I get to meet here in about 2 hours for the first time in 2 years. She's a fellow author, and and we're on panels together, and I got her here, and I'm like, doing this, waiting to meet her. That's a story in itself. The power of something like radio, television, the internet, these conventions, and that's what I really love the most.
I had Kalila like that. Kalila Smith, I met her through stuff. I interviewed her 3 times on my show.
That's neat.
For different stuff, for her book. She's a Voodoo High Priestess, so I did the paranormal stuff. And I finally got to meet her. I was just so excited. Sorry.
But if you had told me as a kid that one day I would have a talk show and I would interview the greatest American hero, William Catt, I would have flipped. If you told me as a kid that one day I'd have a talk show and I'd be on a first name basis with the man from the Chewbacca costume, I would have flipped. It's really been so awesome, in just 77 episodes, and, probably right after our first birthday, Super Bowl weekend. So right after our first birthday, Super Bowl weekend 2011, because we started in 2010, I called, Larry, and I said, looking back over the past year, this has really worked just like you said it would. It's like, yes, it did, didn't it? So now just keep doing it, and it'll work some more.
Well, I just feel very privileged to be able to connect with so many other authors and people involved in the literary world. And I feel like that I'm more part of my community, and even more beyond that, by being able to provide a spot for them to show their stuff and help them get out there and promote their work in any way that they can. This is another facet. And they're able to use these podcasts on their website, wherever they want, and it doesn't cost them a dime.
That's true.
And it also gives you a much more clear view of who you might want to see. As a reading public, mainly I'm an author too. I have books out and everything. I have books out and everything else. But as also a member of the reading public, I'm always looking for especially urban fantasy, since that's what I've got, coming out. I need to do research. When my publisher went, "You want an award? Go write urban fantasy." I went, eh. But I needed to go out and do research. One of the first things I went to was podcasts. And I was like, all right, who might I enjoy? And what is urban fantasy? We call it vampire. But it's that kind of thing. I had to go look it up, and I didn't know. But one of the first things I went is podcasting, and went, all right, who do I emotionally connect with, and who can I get, that kind of stuff. So
That's great. Okay. You guys have any
I can give
questions?
you the weather forecast.
You might need that.
Really hot. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys, for being here. Nice to meet you guys.
yeah,
Likewise.
I watched everybody. That was awesome.
Love it. Thank you all.
Thank you.